All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Let's start off our conversation on the state of the nation here, and joining us now is Dr. Ekuru Aukot, party leader, Third Way Alliance. Thank you for making time. Honorable Jared Okello, Member of Parliament for Nyando, is here with us. Asante sana for making time. Honorable Owen Baya, Deputy Majority Leader in Kilifi North MP, is on his way. As soon as he comes in, we'll drop him into the discussion. But let's start off with the Daily Nation. There's a lot going on there. Two CSs are sought over cooking oil scam. And Honorable Jared, I'll start with you on this. Are you surprised by this? Because many people are saying that this deal, the 16.5 billion shilling deal, was meant to lower the cost of edible oils, sugar, rice, and maize, but that never happened. Is this another scandal in the making?
Well, thank you very much, Trevor. And first, allow me to congratulate Royal Media Services for what they conducted last evening, creating awareness on cancer in collaboration with the National Cancer Institute. That the cancer has taken a huge toll on Kenyans, taking away their income in order to seek treatment. And Royal Media Services coming out to enlighten us, through the victims, to the involvement of government and experts. I think that was something that is applaudable. And I wanted to really thank Royal Media Services for doing that. And as we go forth, you need such kinds of engagements because we have lost millions of Kenyans and people across the world as a result of cancer. My parents, both of them, actually died out of cancer. So it's something that really needs more than just an awareness, but a proactive approach by the government. Now, coming to your question, this is just a tip of the iceberg, I would call it, when it comes to the management of Kenya Kwanza in government. We just finished, not finished yet, but kept it under wraps, discussions on oil, 17 billion worth of oil that has remained mysterious to date. And before that ink dried up, we now have to confront another issue of edible oil. Of course, this is not the first time this is coming to the public limelight. It has always been there, simmering beneath the ground, but now it has come forth. And the headline here talks about two CSs sought over cooking oil scam. The paper actually does not mention those two CSs. I don't know why. Because Kenya National Trading Corporation falls under the Ministry of Trade. And then you have the Ministry of Treasury, which must always get involved in any transaction by government. So instead of going around the cycles, they ought to have said, two CSs under Trade and Treasury are being sought after by the DCI to answer.
And a parastatal head.
And a parastatal head, yes. KNTC is a parastatal. So instead of taking Kenya around in cycles, they ought to have gone directly into the substrum of these issues. Yeah. 16.5 billion shillings was akin to what was there before during Uhuru's time called the subsidies. So a consignment was to be brought into the country here in the name of edible oil, passed through KNTC. Then KNTC was to release it to the market at affordable price. Kenyans did not see any affordable oil, leave alone any idea that the oil actually made it into the country. So you have 16.5 billion shillings that has already been lost, on top of 17 billion shillings on oil that is still questionable to date. But this boils to one fundamental thing, Trevor. No one has ever campaigned in the whole world like William Samoei Ruto. Immediately they got into office for the second term, he straight away went on a campaign trail. He visited central Kenya, countless times, visiting churches, visiting, institutions, conducting fundraisers. And actually, Uhuru Kenyatta, his boss then, together with the Prime Minister Raila Odinga, questioned the sources of those monies. And the mere fact that monies were actually stashed in bags and presented to the clergy, that raised a lot of fury at the time. But people ignored. But let me tell you, in America, they would tell you that there is no free lunch. That money had to be recovered somewhat. So you don't expect that those bags were stashed in churches, in fundraisers, and there was no accountability over them. They were to be recovered somewhere. Okay. So these are monies that were actually spent and given to Kenyans in terms of tokens and kickbacks and freebies are now being recovered by Kenya Kwanza. And you cannot involve yourself in such a huge scandal without the blessing of those at the top echelons of governance. So I believe that as the DCI will be unraveling, and I only hope that the DCI will do its job, because again, certain times they receive phone calls to suspend certain investigations or to go slow or to hide certain
very strong allegations.
I'm saying certain times.
If it was the floor of the House, you'd have to say
But you see, Trevor,
let me hear what you say about it.
But you know, Trevor,
yes.
I think in defense of Mheshimiwa,
yeah.
You know, we are not strangers in Kenya.
Yeah.
These things happen. And I think in the face of the fact that absolutely no result is ever, comes out of even this investigation to the satisfaction of the general public or even to government itself, of course, I mean, the logical conclusion is that, yes, there is influence. But having said that, first of all, Mheshimiwa, I think you should be bold enough to say that William Ruto has not stopped campaigning. From 2012 up to today. He's still campaigning. And this campaigning, I mean, we've seen him go back to the road. He no longer sits down to actually implement the plan, quote unquote, the plan, or the policies of government. He's already on the road. And the reason William Ruto is on the road is because he's trying to legitimize himself. And now for many people, even who voted for him, including myself, we are now asking ourselves very hard questions. Did he actually win fairly? What is this attempt to legitimize yourself? Trying to, why don't you just implement? You know, Trevor, as I was coming here, I took a bolt ride coming here. So I asked the driver, I'm going for this show. How will you describe the state of the nation? He told me things are getting worse by the day. It's getting worse and worse. And I said, okay, what aspects? He said, look at the prices of everything, of every commodity. Basically, he's talking about the cost of living that everybody's speaking about. And he's telling me nothing has gone down. Can you imagine, Trevor, my fare to your station here was 200 shillings. So I asked him, okay, explain this to me. I'm supposed to pay you 200 shillings. But I know fuel prices, the cost of fuel, 1 liter, is 200 and, is it 1917? Yeah. So he tells me, no, let's break it down, the 200 shillings. First of all, 30 shilling goes, I think, to the hub, the Bolt guys. So he remains with 170. So he's not even able to actually fuel his own car. So I ask him then, why do you do this job? Because there's no profit here. And he tells me, listen, I make the conscious choice. Do I sit home idle and do nothing and be tempted to do other things, including even crime? In fact, he was telling me these days it's even difficult to rob anybody. Who will you even rob? The situation is bad for everyone.
They have no one. They have nothing in their pockets.
To even rob. So instead of sitting idle, I really want to come out and just keep myself busy. But let's go to the question around this headline. You know, Mheshimiwa should have said this, and we all know. William Ruto's campaign was funded by individuals or by cartels, because he speaks of cartels, but he doesn't tell us who are these cartels, including those in the oil, the edible oil. So we know that for a fact, and everybody knows this, that his campaign was actually funded by individuals. The truth for the matter is, and they may not want to be honest about this, those individuals now have to be rewarded with positions in government. And what they are doing, they are now recouping their money back. And that's why you saw, even in the State of the Nation address, the president never addressed the question of corruption or theft of public money. At least, I mean, he didn't come out very strongly to say, this is corruption, and he doesn't speak about it. Although during his campaign, I recall a statement he made, which is that when we take over government, there'll be no money to be stolen. But we've seen a lot of theft happening. We've seen a largesse in government. We've seen money being spent that we do not even have. He also said that we will not borrow. But now, comparatively, the 1 year of President William Ruto compared to, say, for example, the 10 years of Kibaki, the 10 years of Uhuru Kenyatta, he has borrowed, exponentially, comparatively. So one wonders, going forward, where are we headed? And by the way, and one of the questions really, Trevor, people are asking, where are we actually heading as a country? When people talk about the state of the nation, I've just been to 2 meetings, one outside Kenya and one in a remote location in this country. And the outcry out there is that things are bad. We can pretend about it, but things are bad. And I'm sure Eshimua here have got even more experience than me. I'm sure their M-Pesa people just smell money as soon as the M-Pesa eats them. But people are fundraising for almost everything, for education, for food, for health, especially medical. Yeah. Medical is a worse. And when I see a new medical fund being introduced, people are now asking, so are we saying that the NHIF, for example, has died? What is this other new fund? Yesterday, I saw on social media, I don't know how true it is, but I'm yet to confirm this, that there is now going to be a new tax called the household tax of 2.7% for every household in this country. Meaning, therefore, Trevor, KRA will now come to you and say, okay, Trevor, for the last 1 year, we've noticed that you've been shopping XY amount of money. So we want a taxation, because that tells us that's your income. So they're even coming to tax what you are eating, the food, you are eating, for you. So the situation, basically, talking about describing the state of the nation today, there is a lot of desperation, there is despair. People do not people are not confident where we are headed. And now they are asking, actually, did these people even have any plan at all from the very beginning? Yeah. And people are now questioning that. And I think what the government actually has failed to do, in my view, is to come and explain itself. Yeah. That, and by the way, there is absolutely nothing wrong by saying, you know what, I think we are overestimated certain things. Yeah. We can now go back to the drawing board. And lastly, before Mheshimiwa comes in, like my taxi ride here told me, we don't know who to believe anymore. The president says this, his deputy says that. Some minister says that, another person says that. So there's total confusion. The government is not speaking with one voice. Especially the 2 big guys. The president is deputy. And people compare many things. For example, just the other day, you see the demolitions in Mavoko, although it passed. But people now also remember when he was in Nyandarua, he promised that there will be no demolition of anybody's houses. The president said, when you're in such a situation, sit down with the person and agree. Yeah. So there is talking at cross purposes. So there is confusion that people do not know where are we actually headed. Okay. And let me tell you, I've taken a keen interest on mental health. Not as a doctor, but there is depression in this country. People are depressed. Yeah. And it's a crisis that government actually needs to address. And people are depressed because of all these many issues. Last night I was discussing with my friends that we were talking about are we able to pay school fees these days? Yeah. By just writing one check. The truth for the matter is, no. People are even now saying paying school fees, for example, is not a priority. We will stagger it, but priority is to put food on the table. Yeah. And this is for the working class, the middle class, the so-called working class or middle class, who today are feeling they are actually being oppressed. Because the moment you overtax, for example, the middle class, you're actually taking away jobs. Because it's the middle class, working class actually create job opportunities. Government cannot employ everyone. Okay. But it is people like us running our offices who will decide, I want a driver, I want a gardener, I want a chef in the office, I want this and that. But the moment, your income becomes, dwindles, then you have to do cost-benefit analysis whether I maintain a certain trajectory or not. And that's the state of the nation today.
All right. Honorable Owen Bai is now joining us. Thank you for making time, Honorable Owen Bai, Deputy Majority Leader and Cliffy North MP. Thank you for making time. We were just giving our reactions on the front page of the Daily Nation. 2 CSS sought over cooking oil scam. We see that there was an irregular importation of 16.5 billion worth of edible oils, sugar, rice and maize meant to bring down the prices of the food items locally by a government agency, but that never was. What is your reaction to this headline?
Thank you very much, Trevor, and nice to be in the company of great people. And I want to say this at the beginning. One, the headlines that I hear on CSs and corruption and all that, it is a government position, and I want to state it here, that we will not, as a government, condone corruption. Whoever steals in his own capacity as an individual. If a CS is involved in any type of scandal where public money is lost and he is culpable, let the law take its course on them. And we will not, personally, will not defend a CS. They should be investigated, just like the lady, I saw the lady yesterday of KNTC having been arrested and, been questioned. That should happen to CSs if that is what they have done. Until proven guilty, I believe everybody is innocent, but let the processes that must prove whether the person is guilty or not start. Because, you see, and issues of corruption in government and CSs does not begin with William Ruto's government. And I remember in the Grand Coalition government, we had issues. We had issues of the maize scam. We had issues of the youth fund. We had many issues even when Raila Odinga was Prime Minister. We had issues in his office. But Raila Odinga as a person stood clean. And here he is. But there are people who are implicated in those things. In the Uhuru government, we had around, how many CSs were told to step down? Around 6 CSs were asked to step aside. Because, I think the first time of Uhuru, because of allegations of corruption, including one Ayo lady, Charity Ngilu. And she was removed from cabinet because of that. So these issues should not be seen as a William Ruto problem. These are issues that come in with government. And all the governments that we have had in this country have had such issues. But I want to say that every person must be judged by his individual deeds. And if CSs are putting their fingers in the cookie jar, they should be held accountable as individuals. And if, I know this CSs, some of them are my friends, but if you're my friend or you are what to me, whether you're the president's friend or not, you did what investigations saw that you did something that is not consistent to the Integrity Act. I think investigations should be instituted. Trevor. Secondly, on the issue of corruption, yesterday we passed the Conflicts of Interest Bill. One piece of legislation that is a very bold move by the William Ruto presidency in terms of tackling corruption in this country. It is one of those legislations that everybody is shocked that the president has actually allowed this to come into law, because it is cutting across in terms of fighting corruption. The issues of fighting corruption, this is the only government, Trevor, that we have seen any time there's an allegation on corruption, people are told to step aside or they're fired.
Who has stepped aside?
We have seen, I think the last 2 weeks, where the head of public service issued a letter asking CSs to request those people that were holding offices, some of them parastatal heads, some of them chairmen of parastatals, to vacate office on the basis of allegations of corruption. We have seen
small or menace. Small or menace.
That is a show that we had an issue at health. You remember, and a PS was fired. That has happened. This is the only government that has done that. So in terms of fighting corruption, William Ruto does not need to stand at the podium and say, I am going to slay the dragon. We'll give them enough time to speak.
Let me speak. Coming.
Let me speak. Let me speak. William Ruto does not have to always stand at the podium and say he will slay the dragon, just like
why shouldn't he? He's the president.
President Uhuru Kenyatta used to say, and did nothing. You know, but William Ruto will put law and mechanism to ensure that those that are implicated in issues that are corruption are dealt with by the law, not by him, but by the law, because it is the law that will either prove you're guilty or not. And I think William Ruto's government has shown, without a doubt, the ability to fight corruption in this country. I don't think so. It does not mean that people will not attempt to be corrupt. But this government, and we have seen, we have read, I think the Office of the Head of Public Service is doing its job right now. Any allegations of corruption on any person in this country, especially in government, has been met by a strong arm from the Office of the Head of Public Service, and we have seen it. And we have seen it happen that you cannot be in this government if you are corrupt. Okay. So I want to say this in conclusion, that if the two CSs being accused and sought for the cooking oil scam, the law should take its course. It should be summoned, record statement, investigated, and if they are culpable, they should be prosecuted, and let the judges do their job.
You know, let me help Mheshimiwa Owen in defending this government. So I can say that in defense of the president, that one of his successes has been to raise his profile abroad. But at home, people are fuming. In fact, Mheshimiwa, I will send you an article. Kenya's leader lifts his global profile. At home, the public fumes over rising food, fuel prices, and new taxes. So that is his success story. He's out there profiling himself as a champion of you know, climate change and all that. It's a success story for him, but not a success story in Kenya. And listening to Mheshimiwa Owen here, you know, he just repeats what people are saying out there. This government is about excuses, excuses, excuses. It's about we will do this, we will do that. Listen, stop defending the government of the day. That is the lingua we all know in democracy. It's the language of the day that is responsible for the problems the country is facing. So whether you bring Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Amolo Odinga during their time or not is inconsequential, Mheshimiwa. You know, if you want to move this country forward, stop these excuses. Because the truth for the matter is, let's talk about the CSS. President William Ruto, and he is on the spotlight. We will not excuse that. Whether you want to blame President, by the way, Uhuru Kenyatta is not a president, now an ordinary citizen enjoying his retirement benefit. And as a matter of fact, because of the failings of these governments and the lies now, the political lies of 2022, it's even drawing back people like former President Uhuru to now comment on how the government is going. And people are saying government is going the wrong way. In the context of accountability, Trevor,
I hope you'll give me back my time.
You will have
back my time. You know, I had just responded on one item, only one item. So when he's done with that, bring it back here.
You'll respond, but I will tell you also one of the difficulties you have is to defend this government. That's a very huge task you have. But in the context of accountability, Trevor, these CSs are not ghosts. Just like Mheshimiwa, said earlier on, mentioned. We know it is the Ministry of Trade, it is so and so. So when will these people be held accountable? This language of we are planning, we will do this, really need to stop. Kenyans want to see results in some of these problems. People want to see, what is it you're doing about the cost of living, fuel prices and all that. Now, it's apparent that, yes, public money has been stolen through the so-called importation of edible oil. Who actually is responsible for that? You control the intelligence arm of this government. You control the investigative agencies of this government. Surely, is it rocket science to tell us actually it is CS so and so? Why are we shrouding who these cabinet secretaries are in secrecy? And the truth for the matter is, and I'll still repeat here, it's difficult for William Ruto to let any of his cabinet secretaries go because they funded his campaign. That's a fact.
This is a fact that you can prove.
A lawyer. You don't have to say it, Trevor, because you are supposed to be neutral, but I'm taking full responsibility for saying that.
Okay.
Well, let me begin by a proviso. I'm a bit disappointed that Ekuru, my friend, Daktari, actually voted for William Ruto.
Yes, I did.
Just confirmed it now.
Yes. I mean, what happened to this brilliant
But who did you vote for?
Of course.
Who?
Baba.
How do we know?
Yeah. But at least you have said that you voted for William Ruto. I'm very disappointed.
Ngoja, Mweshe, give me just 1 minute of rebuttal. You know, Mweshe, we need to move away from who voted for who did not vote. First of all...
Well, you started
No? Yes? Okay, fine. Fair enough. But elections are about exercising one's choice.
Okay.
Yeah, and when I was coming here, I like to repeat stories I hear out there from the people. And this taxi driver was telling me, Uhuru wasn't that great, but it was difficult for President Uhuru to convince anybody to support Baba because of some of the dissatisfaction people had about Uhuru. And that's part of the reason why Ruto, with his political lies, was somewhat convincing. So, Mwesh, voting is a choice.
Anyhow, anyway, it was a choice people made.
Yes,
and
so let's move on.
Those who actually voted for him are all regretting. You are not the first one.
Yeah.
And besides that, you have made a very fundamental statement that Ruto, up to now, is still campaigning, doing nothing but trying to legitimize his win. Win in quotes. And my brother Ekuru has put it quite clearly. And by the way, when we were young and you were in the public limelight, and you were very eloquent, putting things across, we admired you very much.
You don't admire me anymore.
We actually thought you were a Luo. Akuru means a dam, so we thought you were a Luo.
Akuru Mukwot.
Akuru Mukwot, yeah. So that's why we thought you were a Luo. And your brilliance actually, deviated that way. Anyhow, so this is a person who is still on a campaign mode trying to legitimize his win. And by the way, all statements that they make, they have to make reference to the fact that they won the elections. I mean, once you have won,
you're in office.
Fair and clear, you move.
Go to work.
Go to work. Deliver your promises. But up to now, a year plus later, they are still saying we won that election fair and square. We don't want to see this. We don't want to see this. Let me come to fundamentals now. We have borrowed as a country, borrowed heavily, more than Uhuru Kenyatta borrowed during the same period of his governance. And we don't see that money anywhere. So you ask yourself, where is this money going? What we have seen Ruto doing is relaunching projects that actually Uhuru had already launched, and they are ongoing. So this is what has kept Ruto very busy in town, moving from one place to another, relaunching those projects. And you ask yourself, why are we going to shoulder this responsibility of settling loans that we never benefited from? Is somebody taking our money somewhere? Now, I wanted to make reference to what the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, said in a function in Mombasa. He challenged Kenyans who have an idea of how to fix this economy to come forward and give them those ideas. Now, basically, first things first, he's passing a vote of no confidence on the Economic Council, headed by none other than our economist, David Ndii. So when a Deputy President comes forth to say that, we have been defeated. We don't know how to fix this economy. All our, manifesto, the slogans, the campaign slogans, cannot sell, have no currency now. So if a Kenyan out there, and by the way, on what platform are we going to present those ideas? Because those ideas have actually been presented. They have ignored all of them. You remember the finance bill of 2023-2024, actually the most debated finance bill ever, which is now an act, in the history of our country. People presented memoranda. Lots of them, over 1,200 people presented memoranda. I remember economists, including my friend Ekuru Aukot, actually appeared before them and sent memoranda on how to fix our economy. Our friend Kwame, I think the best economist in the country now, actually went personally, presented both written memoranda and oral memoranda.
They were all ignored.
And they were all ignored. Now, the Deputy President comes forward to tell us that whoever has an idea, what happened to the ideas that we have, presented so far? In my coalition in Parliament, we gave them ideas. We trashed this finance bill, now an act. And we told that this is something that is heading nowhere. And they thought that it was just mere say. Now they are confronted with the same issues that we presented before them. Whereas we have borrowed heavily, we have finished our first quarter, getting into, actually second quarter of the new finance year, getting into the second quarter without any CDF, zero across all constituencies of the Republic of Kenya. Governors are crying, over the shareable revenue. They haven't received anything. Just the other day, the Deputy President comes forward and says we have sent 10 billion shillings to address El Nino floods. The following day, the Council of Governors come forth to say, by the way, we have received no money. And now the Deputy President goes quiet. Lies after lies, confusion after confusion. I mean, we are heading nowhere. This country is basically on an autopilot. And when a flight is on autopilot, without a pilot attending to it in good time, it crashes. Okay. So this country is crash landing very soon. But let me finish by saying this. When President Obama took office in the United States of America, the economy had just gone through a very difficult depression. There was a recession in the whole country. Obama picked it up from there, never blamed George Bush Jr., and moved with it. When Kibaki got into office, Moi had just messed up this country. But they said, let us not use the rear mirror. Let us focus on fundamentals of our economy and move forward. That is what they did. Okay. For the first time, we are seeing a government that is constantly looking at the side mirror as if they are strangers in this government. Ruto was deputy, Uhuru's deputy for 10 years, undisturbed. 10 years. In fact, at some point we thought
that Imani Ichung'wah was the chairman of the
budget committee for 8 years. My friend, Honorable Aden Duale, was our majority leader for 8 years. But
Murkomen
was the leader in the Senate for those many years. But lies sell. And they were able to convince the populace that they were actually out of government, being hounded out by President Uhuru Kenyatta. And that is how a few Kenyans ended up voting for them. I'm not saying they won. I'm saying a few Kenyans actually voted for them. Let me finish by saying this. Let me finish. No. This is my last statement. When the economy is this bad, and my friend Ekuru made, alluded to it, that they are talking at cross purposes. They're saying for the first time they're going to defend property of Kenyans. But we wake up one morning and at the river, demolitions were happening. Yesterday, not too long ago, they demolished Rai houses in Kakamega. You know Rai?
Just one try.
Yeah, just one. This billionaire who has employed more Kenyans than any government has ever done. But they're demolishing him and even threatening him with death, that they have a flight to heaven for him if he does not withdraw certain cases in court. So here, on the other side, we are trying to look for somebody to help us fix our economy, but on the other hand, destroying the same economy that we are talking about. President Suluhu in Tanzania last week, and Ekuru has said, no, Ruto is a global icon. But at home here, we don't recognize that at all. But Suluhu made a reference to him, told him, by the way, this over-reliance on the West and on the global stage is not going to help Africa. Even simple things such as controlling our climate change, we have to rely on the West, who are also battling with the same challenges. So she said, let us unite as Africa, starting from the East African community, and make sure that we have a buffer to help handle our own challenges locally. Instead of taking a flight every time. I don't know where he's going to today, but I think he's going to some flight somewhere.
Let me take a quick commercial break, then Owen, I'll come with you.
I have timed him. He has,
I'll come to you in just a bit.
He has done 6 minutes.
A quick commercial break.
6 minutes. So
we'll give you extra time.
I've given Jared 6 minutes.